Hi there, welcome back to the channel. So, if creating content feels overwhelming for you, or if you start strong and then you kind of disappear, or if you have ideas but no consistent output, it's probably not a motivation issue, but more so a content and creation systems issue. Content becomes sustainable when your setup lowers your resistance to doing the thing instead of raising it. So, let's talk more about that. Your content stack should make creation a lot easier. Think about like when you're trying to implement a new habit. A popular thing, especially in the new year, is people want to go to the gym more. And so you hear people talk about how they do habit stacking, where basically they kind of put their clothes out, they put their shoes out, so that way there's no excuse of trying to figure out what to wear in the morning. They'll probably have their protein drink out, ready to go. So all they have to do is once they get dressed, they go into the kitchen, shake it up a little bit, and then head out the door to go to the gym. It makes it harder if you don't have those things lined up to encourage you to pick good habits. So that's the same thing when it comes to content creation. Your content stack, again, it doesn't make the creation more impressive. It doesn't make it more complicated. You want it to make it easier for yourself, because the consistency doesn't come from intensity. It just comes from building a structure that allows you to have, again, a lower resistance to creating content. So let's talk about the structure. I'm going to break this into 5 layers when it comes to the content and creation space. So the first thing is idea capture. The second is planning and decision making. 3 is creation environment. 4, editing and finishing. And then lastly, we have publishing and repurposing. So let's talk about the first one, idea capture. This is the place where ideas live before they disappear. So most creators, they have a ton of ideas, honestly. It's just probably the struggle is trying to figure out, one, where to place them. They lack a capture system. They maybe have notes, sticky notes, notes in notebooks, notes on the phone, text messages they may have sent to themselves. If the inspiration only lives in your head, it may very well die there. So I would recommend having one dedicated place for ideas, capturing your thoughts immediately when you think of them, separating idea dumping and idea refining, and I'll talk about that in just a moment, and then also keeping raw thoughts without judging them. So how this would look in real time, I'll use myself as an example. My one dedicated place for ideas is Apple Notes, and I have all my Apple Notes lined up. They're very organized. I have folders for everything, folder for personal notes, business ideas, ideas for specific businesses. One day I want to be an author, and so as I'm going through my day, I may have story ideas. But what I would do, I usually have my phone on me all the time. So I would go into my Apple Notes. If there's something that I think about, there is a type of note that I have, like it's almost like a junk drawer type of note. So I go in there into that note. It's not organized or filed into my filing system, but it's just, again, a note that's my junk drawer. And I just dump all my ideas and thoughts in there. And the idea of that is to immediately, again, capture those thoughts, have one place for all of my thoughts. But when it comes to the idea of separating idea dumping and then idea refining, when I'm just trying to put things in that note, I am not validating the ideas. I am simply just trying to get them out of my head so I don't forget them. And typically like once a week or whenever I have time during the week, but definitely I would say by the weekend, I would want to go to that junk drawer note and then actually think about those ideas and start validating them. And if they were a valid idea, it's like, okay, maybe it's a story idea. It's like, okay, yes, I love that plot device. Let me then file that under story ideas. Same thing if it's a business idea. Maybe I was too hopped up on caffeine and it's like, Simone, I don't know what you were thinking with this. That idea is trash. Then I would delete it. Or maybe I'll think about it and refine it and then filter it or order it in my system of notes. So I would say when you're inputting your ideas, just input the ideas, and when you have a moment to actually think and go back and look at your notes and see what you were thinking, then that is when you would actually do the refining and figure out, is this something you're going to act on, or was that just a passing fleeting thought that should have been let go? So that's how at least it works for me in real time. I don't judge the thoughts as they come. I just, again, drop them in there, figure them out later. But at least when it comes to the idea of capturing, having that one spot for those ideas is so integral. So that way you're just organized. And again, you're trying to lower the resistance to building content. And so at least having your ideas in one spot that you can go to makes it so much easier. So let's talk about part 2, and that is planning and decision making. So you want to reduce creative decision fatigue at this point. You shouldn't, well, you know what? I'm not going to tell you what you should do. Typically, you would maybe separate your strategy days and your creation days. So your strategy days are more so of you thinking about what you're going to post, and then your creation days is you actually executing on those ideas. For me, just speaking for me, typically I like doing my strategy one day, typically probably in the morning. This is when I would do research. If I'm working on a client's social media deck for the month, I would go research any kind of observances that are happening, anything that's happening within their industry, kind of check out some news articles about things happening in their industry, basically doing a lot of research, note taking, and then from there developing a content calendar for that month. And then I would let that sit, marinate a little bit, maybe even send it out to the client depending on the process that we have set up, and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking about for the month. And then I would then on another day, typically for me, I like to do my creative work in the afternoons, like after the lunch hour. That's just when I'm more creative. So it really just depends on you and how you work best. So it's really good to know when you do your best work when. So for me, like I said, any kind of thought-provoking, deep thinking, I try and do in the morning, but in the afternoons, I'm more kind of wavy, wispy, whimsical, and just more creative in the afternoon. So that's when I like to do that work. So based off of you and what you like to do, figure out what that cadence and what that structure looks like for you. But again, you want to make sure that you have some type of structure around this time. So even if I like getting a cup of tea or a nice drink as I'm doing my strategy work. It makes it feel fun for me. The creation part for me is really fun. It's the strategy part that's kind of like but it's important because it does influence the design piece. So make it fun, structure it if it helps you. But I would say you want to definitely, have some time for planning and actual decision making to review your ideas, validate, research, and then actually execute on the design phase. So let's talk about a little bit more about the design phase and part 3 of this when it comes to the creation environment. You want to make it easy to start. This is about eliminating the friction. I would say, depending on what kind of content you're creating, if you're doing video content, you may want to ask yourself, okay, is it easy for me just to sit down and record my ideas? Or do you have to do a whole entire setup routine because maybe you break down your equipment every time you do a video? Or if you're creating graphics, okay, does this require me to download or re-upload content or try and search for graphics, logos, things that you may need to create the content? So you want to definitely leave things, I would say, semi-ready for yourself. You want to reduce any kind of setup time, creating visual consistency. So if your content has like a brand guide to it or any kind of templates, you definitely want to utilize that because it just makes it easier to actually create the content itself. And then also just have a repeatable rhythm when it comes to content creation. I know for me, what I like to typically do, again, I have my strategy days and I have my creation days. And when I know I have a creation day coming up, like the night before, I have 2 screens. On one screen, I would have the strategy up, and on the other screen, I would have Canva or whatever system I'm using to design the graphics. Have it already up. I would already have my playlist ready to go. So then that way, when I get up in the morning, after I come back from the gym, okay, get your nice protein drink, sit at the table, and just get to work. There's no excuse for me to not just dive right on in. So you want to make it as easy as possible for yourself to create the content and make it fun. Like, I don't want this process. I think anything that you do as a human, it has to be fun. It has to be something that you want to do. So make it a ritual, make it fun. And that also includes the content creation environment piece as well. So moving into part 4, let's talk about the editing and finishing. This is the part where I think a lot of creators stall at because they go back and try and reiterate, they try and go back and fix, they try and go back and rework, and done is better than overproduced. Perfectionism is disguised as itself. What's the saying? Perfection is the enemy of good. You just want to get your content out there, and I would especially say in today's age where with the proliferation of AI, you almost don't want to look too polished or too perfect because people may think that you are AI. And it's actually, in a weird way, such a relief for me. I wouldn't say to have spelling errors everywhere on your content, but when I do see a spelling error on someone's reel or maybe their graphic on Instagram, I'm like, okay, I know a human did this because there's a spelling error. So it's nice to have that authenticity to know that this content is being made by a human. So I would say, again, proofread your work, but also it doesn't have to be so polished to a degree where, especially if it's 90% done and you're stressing and you're taking additional time to try and get it to 110%, it's not worth it. 90% is great. If it has your message on there, if it looks nice, it's everything spelled correctly, publish it and move on. If you learn any type of tips or tricks or gain any kind of insights after creating that piece of content, utilize those tricks and tools that you learned for your next piece of content. Don't try and reiterate that same piece of content. Let it go and move on. All right, so I would also say, moving on to the last piece, part 5, publishing and repurposing. I would say for this one piece of content should work harder than you do. And what I mean by that is you should be able to repurpose your content for the different platforms. Many creators treat every platform like a separate job or a separate entity. I do agree where you shouldn't post maybe like the same graphic on every single platform, but rather, okay, knowing that Instagram is more so visual, like static visual, but it's becoming more I think video centric as well, but maybe having a graphic there and having a reel on Facebook, doing something different on TikTok. For sure, you're obviously having videos, so you want to cannibalize your content in different ways on different platforms. Many times you could repurpose, say, a video piece and turn it into a blog post, and then from that blog post you can take the text from that, any kind of quotes, and make that into a carousel on Instagram. So making sure that when you're creating content, it's not just like a one-time deal. You can constantly use it. You just have to maybe repackage it for whatever platform you're utilizing it for. But really analyze your content and figure out how you can make it extend over the long term. So let's talk about a quick audit for your content and creation systems. Every video has a short little audit for you. So I would say this, with these next questions, if you can answer yes to any of these, then you're in a good place when it comes to your content creation systems. So number 1, you have a place for your ideas. Number 2, I know what I'm creating before I sit down. 3, my setup is easy to use. 4, I publish without over editing. 5, I repurpose intentionally. So again, if you can say yes to all of those questions, you're in a good place when it comes to your content and creation systems. And if you say no, or maybe, or kinda, that may be an area where you want to strengthen, or maybe look and see what you can tweak to make that into a yes. All right. So just to wrap all this up, content creation, it doesn't have to be a scary thing. It doesn't have to be anything that's overwhelming for you. But it does become sustainable when it's designed and not improvised. So again, having some type of structure with this, nothing strict, but having a process will greatly help you. Most of the time, you don't need a bigger personality. You don't need a better camera. You don't need motivation. You simply just need a system to capture your great ideas, a light planning rhythm, a repeatable creation process, a finishing standard, so really knowing when to let things go and to publish and work on your next project, and just a publishing loop. So lower resistance, you're building depth, and you're staying consistent because, again, you're lowering the resistance. So that is what the goal is for that. All right, so that is all I have for you today. Let's see. Today's affirmation. Let's go with I build structures and processes that help me explain my message to my audience. All right, so if you got to this point, thank you so much for watching. My name is Moni, and I create different types of videos on this channel. But I talk about entrepreneurship, careers, travel, dating, and all the things in between that hopefully will help you build a life that truly fits you and your aspirations. So check out the channel page for content playlists for specific topics that you might be interested in. And also, just as a side note, if you need help with anything when it comes to your tech stack, more than happy to help. There's a link in the description box where you can connect with me. Otherwise, I make videos every single day, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.